wristband or something, you snap the wristband and just check when you go through.
Yep.
That's all open
If you've ever seen a store gift systems, it's got all these overhead. That's the point of it. And it's set up a quick out, so just go out and place something on the ground, press a button.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming to our ECSE Career Development Program 2013. So today our title of the talk is Get to Know What the Industry Wants from You. So we all know that when we are graduating from a student life, we are going into the professional life or the professional career. And it's sometimes really difficult to cope up with the challenge because we don't need to get the good grades anymore, but we have to perform well in our professional career. And sometimes it's really difficult for some of the students to cope up with the challenge. To keeping this in mind, we have today three leading industry panels with us to guide us in this process of transition from the student life to the professional career. So I'm just going to go briefly and introduce our speakers today. From our left, we have Ray Keefe. He is the founder of Successful Endeavours Company. He is an electronics designer and embedded software developer with an honors degree in electrical and electronic engineering and additional studies in physics and chemistry. Successful Endeavours has been nationally and locally recognized with several awards, notably the Electronics News Award in 2012. The second speaker, we have Stephen Howell, has 20 years experience in mobile telephony networks, working for Telstra in developing radio networks. He manages a group of engineers within Telstra with the mission to deliver the radio-related technology that will take Telstra beyond the fourth into the ubiquitous data-centric world of fifth-generation mobile networks. And the last speaker we have Aakanksha Chhikara, has a diverse background in biomedical engineering and business development, which has enabled her to work in a startup company which manufactures wearable technologies for posture monitoring on the human spine. She has a PhD in Biomedical Engineering from Imperial College London and a Bachelor of Engineering from Swinburne University of Technology. So without further ado, I'll request Ray Keefe to come and present his talk on Successful Endeavours Company. Thank you.
It's already on.
It's already on there?
Yep.
Okay.
Just,
Turn off the lights. That's exciting technology. Yeah. The old version of PowerPoint on here is too old for my presentation. This is a technology challenge you find all the time. It's called compatibility. Alright, I'll just go through what I was going to say without PowerPoint. So, can you hear okay, or should I... Is this okay, everyone? Alright, one of the big questions is, what am I going to do with my life? I had a few theories. My first one was being an astronaut would be really cool. I read a lot of science fiction. I was always interested in that sort of thing. Unfortunately, there's only ever been one Australian astronaut. My second thought was, if I can't be an astronaut, I'll be a scientist, because science is really cool, you know, solving the problem, saving the planet, all that kind of stuff. So I did 1 year of a science degree, and then I realised I had no idea why I was doing a science degree. So I took a year off, worked a couple of mundane jobs. Mundane jobs are a really good way to understand the value of an education. And I joined a pub band, and I learned to play guitar, in that order. We weren't very good, but we had a lot of equipment that wasn't very good as well, and so it piqued my interest in electronics. So what actually happened is I went back to uni, having had to ask a few people, what on earth do you do to learn how to design, you know, music equipment, with the idea that I was going to design my own amp and racks and PA systems and that kind of stuff. And did 4 years at Deakin in electrical engineering, as it was in those days. What I found was that I wasn't sure what I had to offer the world. I wasn't sure what difference I was going to be able to make. There's a lot of smart people out there doing stuff. Surely, you know, it's going to be hard for someone to think of something new and smart to do. In practice, though, what I've found is that that's the opposite is the case. There are so many things that need doing that there aren't enough smart people actually doing them and making it happen. So there's always an opening for opportunity. I've worked in 7 companies now, doing everything from broadcast engineering to biomedical instrumentation, histopathology equipment, so not quite the same relationship, but patient sample handling. I worked at Varian doing spectrophotometers and scientific instruments. I worked at Invitec doing a wide range of stuff, and it was there that I found my passion for what I'm doing now, which is running a company that designs other people's products for them. So we're basically R&D for hire, and over the past 15 years we've developed 621 products across 123 different industry sectors and 85 different industries, if you slice it narrowly enough. So we don't get bored, because everything is different. Every week we're doing something different. So on average we design 2 printed circuit boards a week and the software that runs on them. And we are mostly working for small businesses, because in Australia that's the way the industry is structured. My one piece of advice on career is this: if you're passionate about something, that will fulfill you a lot more than money will. Money is good for 6 months, basically. If you get a really good job with a really good pay, then the really good pay, or say if you get a really bad job with really good pay, the really good pay will make up for the really bad job for about 6 months. And after that, the lack of passion that you have for that will sort of eat into you a bit. So whatever it is that you do end up doing, if it's something that you believe in, and if it's something that you want to make a difference in, then that's what's going to drive you. My favourite business quote is this: the purpose of the organisation is so that ordinary men and women can come together and in cooperation with each other do the extraordinary. That's why companies exist, to make the world a better place. Yes, they need to be profitable, and yes, they need to operate in the appropriate accounting standards and legal standards, but that's why we do stuff together in companies, is because anything significant is too big for you to do on your own. You need help, you need partners, you need people to work for, people to work with, people to work for you as part of an ecosystem. And so that's the thing that drives what we do. We only do projects we believe in. So for instance, we won't do work for the gambling industry because it's not making the world a better place according to my value set. So we draw lines and decide we're going to do stuff that makes a difference. And I've had the pleasure of a job that I love now for over 30 years. And I hope you all can find the same thing for yourselves.
Thanks, Ray, for your talk. Now I'm just going to request Stephen Howell to come and present his talk.
Launch it. Okay. Here we go again.
Maybe we can switch the talks and I'll just create a...
Just open the Firefox.
Open it,
Sorry?
Open it.
Open Firefox and then we'll open it to
So
Firefox.
Aakanksha's PPT works.
Should be fine because it...
We use a very old version of PowerPoint, so much older than this one.
Yeah, it shows what the university funding model's like.
It takes...
We always have to use the latest of everything because our clients
Yes,
could be using anything.
Yeah.
I always plug my laptop in, that's good.
No. I would suggest switching the
Yes.
talks, and then in the background we can
just make it a
we
PDF.
can make a PDF.
Do you have the presentation?
You have to get it. So do you have the USB?
Sorry, Stephen, we're just gonna...
Yep. No problem.
Sorry about that. Thanks all.
I've actually got
Our next speaker would be Aakanksha Chhikara, and our request her to come and give us a talk about her background.
It depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll try mine first.
No, well, it's a fragmented Windows system.
I think I'll try mine.
Windows system, so she's just trying to
Yeah, it's just opening the video.
Mac is too narrow. Yep. Got to use Windows to develop Macs.
Prepare for the worst. I got a compatible copy because I had a hunch, you know. I've seen it happen so often. So, hi everyone, I am Aakanksha and I've just started Aakanksha, which is a wearable technology company. And by just started, I mean as of August. Prior to that, I was working at Telstra. And I'm also starting Brave Student, an online magazine for students, because you've got a challenging environment at the moment, not only in Australia and overseas, and I thought it'd be great to, have an online publication that can help students. So for me, the transition from academia to industry wasn't sudden. At every opportunity, I tried to get projects or work and work in the industry. And so I'll share a few experiences with you that really helped me adapt from university to industry. So my first project, at the end of first year of engineering, I went home to Delhi over the Christmas holidays and I worked for my father. I designed a machine that could make bricks so that people don't have to. It took me, I worked for 5 weeks, 80 hours a week. And it's a short time for designing a machine, but I was wondering, was that the only reason that it took me so long, that I had to work 80 hours a week for my father? And so I'll tell you what happened. So when I first started the project, I asked my father what he wanted, I would do the work, and then ask for his feedback. And based on what he said, I would revise my CAD designs, show it to him, and do it all over again. And so what I really learned was, what I really learned was that you've got to listen very carefully. I've just skipped a few slides. Yeah, you've got to listen, and you've got to your manager, really understand what they want, and ask questions before you start the project, and communicate regularly so that they can provide you feedback on time. Now, gone off my talk in a strange order, but okay. The next work that I did was that in third year of engineering, I went and worked for Bosch. So I was designing 3D simulations of production cells. So that's just the software that they use, and I got to program and test robot arms, which is really good fun. And just to show you again, after working in the industry, I realized that I wanted to do something that felt more meaningful for me. At the same time, I started suffering from chronic back pain, probably from sitting too much and spending too much time sitting at the computer. So I was suffering enough to think, okay, can I make a change? Can I do something about it? The doctor can't help me, the physio can't help me, and so that inspired me to go to do a PhD at Imperial College. So this is just a snapshot of my PhD research, where I developed sensors that could be worn by back pain patients, and it would monitor how they move as they perform their daily activities. And after I finished that PhD, I was able to get a position at Telstra, a Melbourne startup which had developed technology. So I was able to develop a very crude prototype, but it worked. They had developed a commercial level wearable sensors for use by back pain patients, and that product is now in the market, called vMove. And they were using the same technologies, the same hardware, inertial sensors, but they had custom algorithms for monitoring how athletes were moving. So they could monitor how, for example, that footy player, how much ground reaction force or how much force his legs experience as he's running. So they were just doing really amazing stuff. So I've already spoken to you about that, but I'll get to the lessons from Bosch. Now Bosch is where I really learned how to work, and I think I realized that long after I'd left. I finished my 6-month internship. So when I first started, I noticed that my supervisor, he would come in every morning, sit down at his desk with a blank sheet, and write down all the tasks that he wanted to achieve that day. So he knew exactly what he was going to do. And I was in third year of engineering at the time, and so I started copying him. That made sense to me. I started copying him and started planning my work in the same way. And also started looking around. How does Bosch run as a company? How does my head of the department work? How are our meetings organized? I started just observing. And I learned then all the different processes and things that people did that really made the company so great. So I would really advise, whether you do it now or once you get a job, start observing. See how your manager works. See how your CEO works, how the company works. And also be objective. What do you like about it? What do you not like? What would you like to learn? What would you like to improve or change? And, how are successful engineers or business leaders or other companies doing it differently? That's really helped me over the last few years to grow. Okay, so another experience at Bosch was that this was the first project that I worked at. And after designing and testing the simulations, I would have to give them my recommendations. So for this project, I said something like, I think that the fastest the robot can do this task is in 25 seconds. I was gently told off. Don't think, be sure. Take a little more time, double check your work, but be sure. I realized then that they were relying on me to make business decisions. So I can't just think. If I'm unclear about something, I should say frankly, look, I'm not sure, I need your help, could you advise? But otherwise, if you're recommending something, be sure. Now, at Bosch now, I was in the R&D department, and at times, even though we've got a list of tasks, this is what we're doing today, urgent jobs would come up. So at a drop of a hat, you've got to switch gears. And that was hard, getting used to that you've just got to drop what you've planned and work on something else to get that out of the door, and then you can go back to your nice to-do list. So yeah, I learned how to do that, and then I was getting comfortable. I was 4 months into my internship when my supervisor broke his ankle while snowboarding on his first day of his winter holidays. So I had 2 months left to my internship, and my head of the department came up to me, and he's now the director of Bosch in China. At that time, he was the head of my department, and he said, look, Aakanksha, we've got this high-value project coming in, and I know you've only got 2 months. Can you do it on your own? The whole simulation, completely unsupervised. And of course, I was nervous and I was scared, but I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I did it. I slogged for the next 2 months, and I got the job done. And I was only in third year of engineering at that time. So how was I, a third year engineering student, able to work on a project that won Bosch $1 million? It was a $1 million project that the simulation won. By rising to the challenge. Even if you're scared, even if you're nervous, even if you don't really know how you'll do it, if a job or a task is something that you want to be able to do it, and that's what I was thinking. I'm not sure how I'll do it, I've never done something like this before, but I want to be able to say that I did that job on my own and I delivered it well. I wanted to do that. So if you want to do that, just step up, take it on, fake it a little. You'll find how to do it. You'll be able to resource the support that you need to get the job done. And this is the first time that I actually realized that, what rising to the challenge meant. I think it's really helped me since. So apart from these sort of work experiences, I've always chased other opportunities, anything that I've been interested in. So when I was doing my PhD research, which many of you are now doing it over here, I worked at the alumni office. I worked for Epigym, which is an Imperial College spin-out, so a startup. Then I also set up RubberGals back in 2009, RubberGals UK, which you would have heard of that. It's Jamie Evans. He helped set it up at University of Melbourne, and I was RubberGals in the UK was the second chapter outside of University of Melbourne, and and now it's all over the world. So I was able to set that up as just, I was interested in it. And then when I got the job at Dorset V, it was great to have a job and I was busy, but I got onto the committee of OSMedTech. So I was, contributing my time over there. So what I would really advise is explore your opportunities. See what explore different work experiences. Kind of contribute your time. Even though university is really busy, find something that you'd like to do or you'd like to learn more and go and contribute. Take the opportunity to meet people. And it's great that, you've invited us here today, but even at other seminars, events, take the opportunity to meet and learn. And that's something that I've always tried to do. Even when I was at Imperial, I was in first year of PhD and I had pretty small funding, so I went and had a chat with a VC, trying to see how I could raise funds for my PhD project before I realized I really want a working prototype, not an idea. But just take the opportunity and go and talk to people. And if you've got a dream, try and see what can help you to make that happen. You'll find it, you'll discover it. Just keep your mind open and go for as many opportunities and experiences as you want. And you know what? You'll find a job that you really like, or like me, you may decide, actually, I want to, take on and embark on an entrepreneurial journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Aakanksha, for the inspiring talk. It was really nice.
Awesome.
We hope all like it.
No, it's really that's the I'll just continue the document.
We're just going to take some time, and our next speaker is Stephen Hall. Sorry, Stephen, for delaying it.
Yeah, I'll load it on the PDF. So okay.
Is it fine if it's a PDF?
Yeah, it should work fine. Hopefully. Ah, there you go. Brilliant.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right, well, good afternoon. I'll go through a little bit about where I come from, which is radio network engineering in Telstra. Talk a little bit about the future, where we're going with radio networks, give you a little bit of a look at what you might be working in if you go into my area. Tell you what I look for when I interview a grad, and a little bit about how Telstra recruits, because there is a formal process now for grads to go through, and then a few little tips at the end. So I always like starting with a quote. This one's from one of the early 20th century presidents of the US. He's the one who had the dam named after him. Basically, he says that it's a privilege being an engineer, because you get an idea, you come up with an idea, you take that idea through some sort of development, and then you get to build it. And look, for me, it's been a real privilege for me developing the mobile networks. So for me, and these days, the idea comes out usually into a computer model for what we're doing. It's no longer pen and paper. We take that computer model in my area and we develop some real-world hardware. Now, of course, as Ray said quite rightly, you can't do this on your own. You need dollars, you need other people to make it happen. But when I look at how my ideas have been taken and created a world-class, in fact probably world-leading network, I'm incredibly proud, and it's just a sense of achievement when you see what you've thought about actually becoming steel and concrete. And of course the end product of this is really to provide some sort of benefit to society. And when I see people using smartphones, I think, well, there's a good chance half of the people using them are on the Telstra network, and so half of them are using something which I personally had a hand in building. And it's a bit of a buzz, and that's one of the reasons I think that a lot of engineers go into engineering. If you have a love of building things and love of seeing something that you've designed or you've had an input into actually being created, then that's really where engineering is going to take you. So to give you an idea of my industry, last year mobile data was nearly 12 times the size of the global internet in 2000. So it's just been a blast of increase in the amount of data that we've been carrying. Every year Cisco does a survey of the mobile network, and by the end of this year they're saying that the number of mobile devices that are connected to networks around the world will exceed the number of people. Global mobile traffic increased 13-fold between 2012 and 2017. That's a real problem, because if I think about it, the network that I have today, so the network that I've built over 20 years, I have to make 13 times larger in 5 years. So exactly what I've built over the last 20 years, I've got to rebuild 13 times over in 5 years. Bit of a challenge. And the last thing that Cisco finished off was the phone in your pocket will be eclipsed by the phone in your car. And I personally support that one, and that's something that I've been on to about for a long time. That, you know, our handheld phones are only the beginning. It's the phones which are embedded in things which are really going to make the difference to the mobile network, and are really going to be the reason that we see this 13 times increase. So basically anything that has a power supply connected to it is likely going to have a wireless connection of some sort, a wired or wireless connection. Let's face it, most of these things have microprocessors in them, even your toaster these days. So the technology is interesting. I've mapped here, this is a plot that I've been keeping for many, many years, and it is the maximum speed of each technology as the technologies come along. It's a logarithmic axis down here, so a straight line will actually give you, of course, a logarithmic increase. Not quite straight, but it is pretty close. So it's sort of saying that we're headed towards the far end. We're going up into the gigabits per second, and we're likely in about 10 years, no, probably less than 10 years' time, about 5 to 7 years' time, be talking around about the 5 gigabit per second throughput. So as I said, everything connected. Ericsson has a prediction that 50 billion connected devices by 2020. Cars, homes, Coke machines. We actually already connect Coke machines. That's an old one. Personal agents. There's talk of you won't just have a smartphone, but you'll have a smart agent sitting on that smartphone, and will collect all the information around you and then filter it. And someone's actually done a measure of the throughput of the optic nerve, and they know how much data you can physically get into the brain. And the amount of data coming in is going to exceed that by a factor of 10 to 20. So your personal agent will need to filter that so that you can just get the data that you need. And of course, we need more throughput, more bandwidth, so we'll be moving mobile radio networks up into the terahertz range. Okay, so that's a little bit of the, trying to excite you, trying to show you where my industry's going. There's billions and billions and billions of dollars being poured into my industry. Even within Telstra, we're pouring billions of dollars into it every year. So it's an industry where there's a lot of vibrancy, a lot of research, a lot of development, and a lot of smart people are needed to keep that going. And it's this audience here that I'm looking at to provide that impetus moving forward. So what do I want? Look, sound knowledge in engineering is important. You do need to have the grades to get you into that first job. I've always said it's the first job where your grades are important. After that, it's your reputation and what people think of you and your proven track record, which makes a big difference. Importantly, I look for someone who can get things done. So I'm looking for some sort of a record or some proof that you've done something, taken perhaps a bit of leadership, been able to make something occur. It's useless having an idea and putting it into the computer and coming out with a pretty picture. That's not engineering. That's a bit of interesting simulation, which really sits into perhaps a research area. For me, engineering is about creating something and seeing what you create. So you've got to be able to get to build the building at the end. So, can you learn without being taught? Yes, there is usually training, formal training that goes on within a business, but they always talk about the 10, 20, 70 rule. And the 70 is about the training you get on the job and the training you do for yourself. So can you look things up? Can you research things? Do you know how to talk to people to learn new information? That's a critical skill when you move in as a professional moving into a business. You're not coming in as a technician, you're coming in as an engineer, you're a professional. I would expect that person to be able to do their own research. Can you talk to people and gain their support? If you have an idea, it's great. We like to hear ideas, but you may find that you get a bit of resistance, especially from the older crowd like me who are saying, oh, we've seen that before. But I'm looking for someone to come and excite me. You know, don't let that put you aside if I say, yeah, we've seen it before. Try a different angle. Try something else. If you really believe in what you've got as a good idea, then push it. You need to be able to gain people's support. It's not about pushing people around, it's about helping people see where you're going and to come over to your side of the argument. And most importantly for me, I think Ray, you said the same thing, I just want to reinforce it, is that enthusiasm. You know, you find something you love, and I totally agree with what you said about money. I've said the same thing, and I've seen my engineers say the same thing too. Money is hygiene, right? You've got to have the right sort of pay scales, but money doesn't attract the best engineers. What attracts the best engineers is interesting work, and work which is going to lead to, again, something concrete at the end. No one wants to work on a project which goes nowhere and has nothing delivered at the end. And that enthusiasm, when you're in a job interview, needs to come forward, needs to come through. We recently interviewed some potential graduates, they're undergrads at the moment, for some scholarships. And the girl that we awarded one of the scholarships to is from Monash, and she just blew me away with her enthusiasm. And that was what really won me, was that enthusiasm she had for engineering. And the way she described what she did outside of here with engineering. She had a dad who was in the same sort of area, and he gave her a few things, and she played with them, pulled them apart, put them back together, had a great time just finding out how things work. And when she talked about that, I understood that she had that passion for finding out and making things go. And that comes back to that second point there, gain people's support and getting things done. And in my area that I work in a development area, so we deal a lot with information, we do deal a lot with ideas, and so we need to have people who can communicate those, both written and verbally. So if you find that English is difficult for you, then you can do things to work around that. And Telstra actually has some programs to help people who do have trouble with English, as it might be their second language. But you do need to build that up. Written language, it doesn't need to be incredibly flowery, it does need to be clear. As an engineer, you do need to have your ideas clearly stated, not just concisely but clearly. You can't have something which is perhaps can be read in two different ways. Because again, as you said, you've got to be sure. Well, it's no good being sure and putting the idea down and someone says, well, do you really mean this or this? Because I can't understand the way you've written it down. So clarity is very, very crucial in the communication that you do. So a little bit of the formality. How do we recruit? Well, it's all on a website. It's www.optioncity.com.au. If you go to that, you'll see this, the top sort of banner there is the sort of graphics which are sitting onto that website. So one of the requirements we have is you must be an Australian or New Zealand citizen or have permanent residency. If you don't have that, unfortunately Telstra can't employ you. So we look for a minimum of a 3-year undergraduate degree, but we can have had that completed in sort of numerous years, and a credit average of 60%. As I said, your grades are important for the first job. Okay, so we do need to have a grade point average up there. We do also have summer vacation program, so if you need to get your 10 weeks up, we do have a program for that, and you're free to sort of apply for that too if you want. So online applications, and there's a list of the actual steps we go through. Very formalised, everyone goes through the same thing. Online psychometric tests, a phone interview where it won't be Telstra calling you, it will actually be our recruitment agency, but they'll walk you through a pre-prepared list of questions that you answer. We have an assessment centre. These are great. I do these. You do these with Telstra managers, where we come in for, I think it's about half a day, and you work with other grads and do various activities. You do a quick thinking session, you do a quick presentation, you do a bit of a sort of a race-through interview, they're really good. They're a great thing. You get to know the managers, and the managers get to know the people very, very quickly. And then finally, you have an interview with a group of Telstra managers like myself, and that's the sort of formal interview that you would have been used to and would have seen elsewhere. And look, this particular recruitment process is fairly common these days. What you see here is what you'll get through most large businesses. So there's really nothing terribly surprising in this. So, career guidance from me. There's Dave Jones runs a thing called Electrical Engineering Video Blog, EEV blog.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No.
Yeah. Dave is over the top, okay? So
If you want enthusiasm.
yeah, I know, he's incredibly enthusiastic. But there are engineers, a lot of engineers actually around like Dave. He's got blog 7 and 27, which talks about what you do when you walk into an interview. He's over the top, right, so you don't actually want to do exactly what he says. But a lot of the stuff he talks about is right. He says you want to go in and show that you have a passion for the industry. You want to go in there and show that you do something outside of your career, outside of your degree in engineering. You know, I'm a radio amateur and I love it. I became a radio amateur when I was 18 years old, 17 years old, still at school when I got my radio amateur licence. So engineering is what I always wanted to do. Do something, and then you can walk into the interview, and when they say, well, what do you think of engineering? You go, I love it because I do this outside of my degree. Okay? Get a Raspberry Pi and program it, or a BeagleBone. Get an amateur radio licence like I have. They're pretty easy these days to get, actually. Become an active developer in an open source project. Perhaps just grab some kits and whip up a few projects at home. Dave goes on about bring in what you developed. Grab the piece of hardware you've got and bring it in. Maybe that's over the top, I don't know. But it certainly shows that you love what love this industry and really want to be in it and have that passion. And that for me is great. I remember one interview I had with one person, and he was going on about how he subscribed to computer magazines. And I said, which one? He said, you wouldn't know it. It doesn't exist anymore. I said, I actually got a subscription to that one. And instantly there was rapport between us because we had a common ground. And that was something he did outside of his engineering degree. So when you're in an interview, state perhaps if you have a preference for some part of the business. The person who's sitting in front of you wants to pick the best person, but he also wants to make sure that he can offer you something that you're interested in. So it's a two-way conversation. It's not just you fronting up to him. He has to also impress you, because these days there is a bit of competition for grads. Okay, so whilst I want the best person, I want that best person to think that Telstra is the best place to come to. So if you come in and you know the business and you say, well look, I've done a bit of research on your business, and by the way, do a bit of research on the business. And look, I know you've got a department that works on this and I'm very interested in that. State that, okay? Because that will be taken into account, if they can, when it comes to placing grads. And Telstra has a large number of grads that come in, and in fact in my division we're going to have 6 grads come in next year. And it's across about 7 or 8 different departments. And where they can go, you can influence where you actually go in the business if you have a preference. And keep learning. That's probably the biggest one. Make sure you keep learning. Be prepared to put aside a time to do some learning on your own. People sometimes feel a little bit guilty that they're not doing the hard slog work and producing something because they're perhaps reading an article, doing some research on some standards. But this is all about staying current. And you need to recognise that continual learning, putting aside the time in your diary or whatever to do your own research is very, very important. And well, congratulations on deciding to become an engineer, because the world will be very boring with us engineers. And thanks to Angela, because I did steal it from him, yeah.
Thanks, Stephen, for the insightful talk. So in this phase of the program, we'll ask you guys to have open questions to our industry panels. It can be for a particular speaker, or it can be in general questions you have. I think most of you have a lot of questions, I myself have. So anyone have any questions, please raise your hands. Yep.
I've got a question for Ray.
Yep.
Do you do any graduate recruitment or somehow vacating work?
We have an internship position at all times, and it gets used either for the internship process or summer vacation, all that sort of stuff. So we do programs like that. One of the things that I look for in people is not only enthusiasm and not only the willingness to have a go and to be prepared to get outside your comfort zone, but I think that if you really love something, it will show. So you'll be doing more than just your course. When I was doing my degree, I was actually designing, building and selling amplifiers and PA systems and mixing desks while I was at uni. So if you say, bring along something you built, I'd be, bring it along. But it shows in who you are and what you love. Because basically there's two rules of thumb. You can tell what people love by what they spend time on and what they spend money on. Outside of that, it's a pretty hard sell. So yes, we do. Places are limited. We're a relatively small business.
What's the application process?
Come and see me afterwards. We don't have this, major process like Telstra, but all of the elements of that process we do use. I do psychometric testing on anyone who wants to work for us because I want to know not only that they're intelligent enough, but also want to know that they're the right kind of fit for the job, that it's going to work for them. Now, it's not such a big issue with an internship, but, and I'm not looking for your classic computer software developer who's an ISTJ MyBreach profile. I need someone with more intuition than that because we design new things. And I need someone who's not a full-on J, who doesn't need the whole roadmap before they can start. So if some of you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you check out MyBreach, do the tests, or I'll leave my email. I can send you a spreadsheet that you fill out that actually will do all the sums for you and give you an answer. Because if you know yourself well, then you'll be able to put yourself in the position of opportunities that are really going to work for you. And something that really works for you will generally work for your employer as well, which is the other point. This is a two-way thing.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Gee, this is a question for all of you. What do you think is the future of knowledge economy in Australia?
I might start. What do you think? The knowledge economy is generally built off need. So, for instance, the thing which has driven the knowledge economy for the last 300 years on the planet is called manufacturing. Manufacturing generates more needs, more problems, and more opportunities than any other industry. And so it's tended to be the thing. If you look in Australia at the CSIRO, most of the projects they do are process problems, not fundamental research problems. So the issue with the knowledge economy is who are you selling to, what are you selling, and what is it worth to them? I think the big danger we face here is that the industries which really hinge off knowledge are the industries that we've, since 1965, been tending to de-emphasise in our economy. And I don't think you can build a knowledge economy off a pure service mindset. If we look at what's happened in the world, Wikipedia have basically made Encyclopedia Britannica irrelevant. One of the definitions of disruptive innovation is something that you do that makes your competitor's business model irrelevant. So I think the issue of the knowledge economy here is working out what knowledge and to who and at what price. The structure of how we do it then will come out of that. If you don't have that, then you really don't have a knowledge economy.
Look, for Telstra, there's been a real lot of investigation onto whether we can target outside of Australia. It's come back time and time again that for Telstra, the best investment is within Australia itself. So when it comes down to what you said, selling knowledge, it's where the solutions are going to end up. And for us, the best return on our dollar has been the Australian continent, not elsewhere. So we have a little business in Hong Kong, which is running fairly well, but for us, the return is just here. So if you can service the right market, service the market in this land, and you can grow that's wonderful. But there aren't too many businesses that can do that. And looking overseas is really what has to be done, I think, for most. And we can see the car industry at the moment is doing very, very poorly in this country because they're just being beaten down by cheaper labour elsewhere. And China is about to come online. It'll be interesting to see how Japan fares when China comes online.
Well, I am more involved with the startup industry, so small niche companies, and I'm chasing after opportunities. And across the board, there are opportunities here in Australia as well, which if you observe and you see something, you go for it. And for other companies, they develop over here. It starts off over here, but they target the US market or overseas. So, like with Dorothy, they saw a gap over here in the way patients were being assessed and treated, and they decided to build a company. But really, the business for the company is in the US. So, and in terms of the opportunities that you identify, then to learn new technologies or learn new things, like I think, as far as keeping yourself up to date and gaining knowledge, I think more and more knowledge is going to be openly available through Stanford Online, Coursera. Whatever you need to learn, you can learn if you've got the drive to do the work. So
it's interesting, it's these niche markets that we seem to do so well in. We take a niche market where there's not a lot of competition around the world, and then we can sell it around the world. We can't sell cars, not even Capri.
Well, that was a design disaster, is the problem. They didn't understand their customer.
Yeah.
One other point on this as well, one of the things that I did after leaving uni is I did 6 months overseas as an overseas aid volunteer. So I actually worked in Pakistan for 6 months, putting recording studios together and helping to learn, because they had 43 local languages. The national language was spoke by 13% of the country. So they wanted to be able to take educational materials to raise the standard of the country's education, and to do that they had to record the same message in 42 different languages and send it out. What I learned there is that the knowledge we need here in our economy is different to the knowledge that other countries need in their economies, and so it's really a case of targeting the end user with the product, if you like, in this case a knowledge product that is accessible to them and that they can leverage, that they can get value out of.
Thanks,
My question to you, Steve, how does Telstra or even other companies view a PhD holder or a PhD graduate?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that I have thought of quite a few times. Look, a PhD, again, as I said, the degree gets you your first job. Okay, so someone who has done a PhD is showing a few things. First of all, obviously intelligent. They got through a PhD. They haven't dropped out. Got some way of applying themselves. Okay, so they've got through it. Then you look at, well, they've got the scientific method. So is that research philosophy going to be useful in the job? And in fact, in my group, in what I do, I have a specialty area that requires a scientific method. So yes, a PhD in my little group of engineers is useful. In the wider Telstra though, there's almost nowhere where a PhD in research is good for that particular reason. It's good for other reasons, as I said. It shows that you can hold on to one idea and bring it through, etc., etc. When it comes out, I've got 2 PhDs working for me now, and I had a third one a little while ago. My 2 PhDs are absolutely brilliant people. They could have done anything. I didn't have to do a PhD, they just did one. But they're both brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The third person I had did all right in my group. He's since gone over to England and he's doing much better in England. But if you're looking at saying, is a PhD something that I require or something where I promote one above another, maybe, maybe not. It comes down more to the things I put in my slide about, do you convince me that you're enthusiastic for this industry? Do you show me that you can get things done? In research, a PhD may be good because you're given 6 months to do something and you go away and do your research, etc., etc. In my area, I can't afford that. With a PhD, great, you know how to do the scientific method, but can you give me a result in a month?
I guess most of the students of PhD holders, they're scared of overqualified statement. People saying they are overqualified.
I can probably add something to that. So I finished my PhD in 2011, so in mid-2011, and then moved down here in August. So what I really found is you have to know how to sell yourself. You have to know how you can offer the other person value. Where they may not see it, you have to convince them. And when I approached OSV, it was just like, look, I've done my PhD, I'm here. Do you have any opportunities. They no. We're not really looking for anyone technical, so they were perceiving me completely from a technical view, whereas my passion has been business and technology. So, and hence I worked at startups. So they were interested, and then I met the investors at a later time, more to understand the startup environment and what was going on over here. And the investors loved me. They told them, get her on board, and so that got me. And they offered me initially, it was a 3-month or 10-week position because they wanted to see what I was made of, what I could do, and they loved me, and that resulted in a 2-year position. Now, there was no way that I could have known that's how it would have worked out when they said, the founders of the company said, no, we don't have any positions or anything. So you need to know what you can do, how you can help this organization, what can you change, what can you help them with, maybe what are they lacking. So you have to learn how to sell yourself. And it's really important. The sooner you start working on that, it's great. And it's really important to also realize the transferable skills that you learn while you're doing your PhD. It's great to work on the research and actually, design your circuits, develop your prototypes, but it's really important to know what are you learning. Not only is it about circuit design, but how you can analyze critically, how you can present your work. If you're going to conferences, how you can communicate the work, write the work, and just really hone those transferable skills, and that's what you'll be able to take from one job to another.
On the issue of selling as well, as technical professionals, we're often terrible at it in terms of working out our own value proposition and reflecting it to the other person in terms that they understand. We've almost gone the other ways and made ourselves incomprehensible to the rest of the world, so they don't know what we're on about, they don't know what we offer. We throw all the 2 or 3 letter acronyms around. The acronyms are the same for both of those, just to add further more confusion. And all of the issues that operate in business, like branding and positioning, marketing, prospecting, all those kinds of things, which you need to be successful in the business environment, they don't teach you in the technical environment. I had to learn them, this continuous learning process, to be able to do what I'm doing now as a business. But I would encourage you to think of yourself in the same way that brands think, which is, how can I present myself? Now, this is the good side of marketing. The evil side of marketing is convincing people to buy stuff they don't need at prices that don't make sense. Okay? The good side of marketing is explaining who you are and what you offer so other people understand it and can make a good decision to engage with it when it's good for them and good for you. And if you don't do the good side of marketing, which is presenting yourself so other people understand, then you're both losing out. You're creating a lose-lose situation. But traditionally, the personality types that drive you to be in this room tend to not engage easily with that other side of things. We often see the marketing people as just taking our lovely facts and turning them into untruths, when in fact what they're really doing is trying to reflect them back into the marketplace in terms of the market understands. So, yeah.
And lawyers are even worse, right?
Well, lawyers have a job to do, which is sometimes to hide the truth.
Yes.
So Ray, to reflect back what you're saying, what you are suggesting is that each of us defines what is our personal brand as an engineer. Is that correct? Or?
Well, at least do some of the thinking along those lines. What is it that you're passionate about?
Yeah.
What is it that, why are you an engineer? I mean, and how is that going to make it, what do you want to do in the world? Start to think about that, because if you can find an intersection point between that and the job, or become the job, do the startup thing. If you've got a big enough idea, and it's a good enough idea, then sometimes you want to do the startup thing with the right people around you.
Any questions?
Okay, just I'm an academic here, so I have few comments about the student, mainly I believe that doing doctorate degree here back. So, what presentation you made, particularly from Telstra, I think that is more focused on the undergrad, I believe, that you mentioned. But in postgrad level, there is a painful period of transition when they submit their thesis and then find for job.
Yep.
So the main dilemma is that as you mentioned that Aakanksha, right? Aakanksha?
Aakanksha.
Yeah, Aakanksha, yeah. In Bengali you call Aakanksha.
Yeah. Amijani.
Yeah. So, developing transferable skill or generic skill is very important. From your slide, I see that you have highlighted those skills, communicating very well, showing enthusiasm. And what is my recommendation for all PhD students here who are doing, not everybody has got the opportunity to do hands-on. But whatever you are doing, either you are doing computer or software development, hardware development, you try to think above your normal comparable zone, that how we can implement into developing these generic skills. So that is my advice to all the students here. And from the perspective of the industry people here, if you can provide 3 months or even 1 month's internship for those students, then they can get good exposure of overcoming this transition.
Yep.
So I think we should work together to find a way and develop some philosophical connection between industry and the academic people.
It's certainly lacking in Australia, this level of connection. Well, another comment I'd make on this point, you will not graduate with all the skills and all the knowledge you need, because it's just too broad. But sometimes core skills that you need aren't taught to you at all at university. So it's really important for you to be reading outside your course material about the industry you want to work in. For instance, if you're talking about software development, 85% of software written in the world today is still written in C and C++. So, and yet these are not highly taught subjects, and certainly not the skill set that goes around them. Test is a really interesting area, particularly in software. Hardware engineers, we learn about test because you can put the multimeter on, you can put the crow on, you can actually trace things through the circuit. In software, we often design things as black boxes where test is almost impossible. So you're learning about unit testing, test-driven development, design for test, development methodologies like Scrum. If some of these words are bouncing off you, then that suggests that if that's an area you're interested in, a little bit of research into your industry to understand what drives it, and maybe some of the gaps that you've got, because the university will not be able to teach you everything. It's just too broad.
I had a question to Aakanksha. Can you just give us some details about the products on the company you just started?
Very early days. I'm collaborating with a couple of people in the US, and we've identified a gap in the market within the health and wellness space. So for at the moment there are lots of activity trackers flooding the market and we've identified an opportunity. So it's still very early days.
Okay.
Just 4 weeks into it. So
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
more related to the biomedical side?
yes, wearable technologies for health
Okay.
monitoring.
Yeah, this is a general question to the panel members. It's regarding networking. So we all know that networking can help you, especially if you're looking after for the first job. And in practical sense, how we can use networking. So let's say you meet a person, you exchange business cards, and what are the next steps from where we can go from that point onwards?
I might start. I'm a networking junkie. It's probably not the right way to say it. My LinkedIn network, if you're a technical professional, get on LinkedIn. It's your online resume. I have 28.5 million contacts on LinkedIn. I had a client who needed to find a telematics engineer in Brazil to help them proceed with a quote over there. I was able to do that through that network. But in Australia, Australians are not very good networkers. We actually, no, this opportunity is mine. I'm not talking to anybody else about it. So there is a bit of reluctance to network here. My advice is work out the forums where you are going to not necessarily, if you go to networking thinking, I need a client, I need a supplier, I need an opportunity, then your mindset is wrong, because you're in the room thinking, I've got to find. The way that networking works best is work out what forums you want to be a part of, because either you can learn or you can contribute, or some of the people you'd really like to meet are there, and go being prepared to give and to learn and to share. And what will happen is that you'll find that when you go with that mindset, you'll actually be more receptive to listen and more receptive to engage, and then people will have an opportunity to see. But if you just go there like a shark looking for an opportunity to eat, then that doesn't work. It really doesn't work.
And in big businesses like Telstra, it's all about knowing the right people to go to. And of course, when you come in first of all, and for probably the first couple of years, you just don't know those people. So you take the opportunities to go to different projects, to talk to different groups, to get out of your office and meet different people. Because unless you know the right person in Telstra, you'll never get the right result. Unfortunately, that's probably the same in all big businesses. In all big businesses, communication is always a problem. People try to make communication better for years and years and years, and it really gets down to knowing the right people to talk to, or being able to trace through and find out who those people are. So, yeah, certainly you just collect cards, etc. You'll probably find a lot of the cards you collect, you just don't need to know those people, and it's not worth wasting time on them. But of some of those, I don't know what percentage it is, some will be gems. When you start talking to the person, you realise, oh, you know, I might need that some days in a field that's very close to mine, so perhaps I'll ping him an email. Yeah, so it is really about finding the right people in Telstra. Always has been.
My advice would be, as we already said, don't go thinking I want a job, and don't go just to collect business cards. I don't carry business cards, and I usually don't take business cards. I just say, when I meet people, I ask them, can we connect on LinkedIn, and just do it that way. But I think, as I mentioned earlier in my talk, was use these different forums. So there are meetup groups as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are seminars. They're organised by IEEE or other chapters, and there are conferences as well. Maybe one like this weekend on Saturday, I was at a startup conference all day. So try and make some time and go to explore, to listen, to learn, and share ideas, learn about what the other person is doing. You know, mention what you're doing, what you're interested in. If you impress them enough, maybe 6 months down the line, 10 months down the line, if an opportunity opens up and they remember you, that I know that guy from Monash, I should speak to him, they'll talk to you. I think that's why use it as exploring and learning.
The other thing that happens is sometimes someone's having a conversation with someone that they know, and they say, do you know anybody who? And then quite often your opportunity is not a first-hand opportunity. Sometimes it's an indirect opportunity for, oh yeah, I met somebody and blah, blah, blah. They sound like the kind of person you might want to meet and have a chat with. So often opportunities aren't always direct, sometimes they're indirect.
And our industry is not a big industry, so you often find that things come around. I had one the other day where someone walked in and said, oh, speak to someone who knew you over here. It's just amazing how the connections come. Just remember, don't burn your bridges, don't annoy anyone, because that could be your boss one day.
Yeah, I remember thinking that the world is very small in Melbourne, especially if you get into a field like medtech or something. Everybody knows everyone. And I know practically everyone in the medtech field. And what I would say is, if you're really passionate about an area or a product, or you see a product that company's made, if you're really, really passionate, you can even try and contact the company going, look, I'm a student and I'm really interested in this, and I wanted to get your advice, or I had a few questions for you, and ask them for a coffee. And at times, if they are interested and can spend the time and want to help students, they do that. And that's what happened when I was looking for work. I didn't approach it as I want to work for this company or that company. I was more like, I'm really interested in what they do, and I want to know more, and that's how I approached it. And you'll be surprised, there'll be people who won't even reply your email, no response, and forget about them. But there'll be other people who will, make one offer you, and you've like, when you've asked for 15. So that's why, just keep an open mind. And
most engineers like talking about what they're doing, don't they?
Mm.
Yeah.
I also had a question to Stephen. Is there any opportunity for that? Because there are a lot of international students as well in summer vacation program, or any opportunities?
We do. Summer vacation program is now formalised at long last. So it goes through the formal process to bring people in. Unfortunately, again, the residency applies. So you've got to be Australian, New Zealand citizen or have permanent residency.
I've got something to add, which is you can try and look at startups. The startups are typically more open and they don't have regulations that curtail them to hiring only permanent residents or people, Australian citizens. Because I'm from Italy, I was here as an international student, and I was able to get lots of work opportunities here. So startups are they may not pay you, they may pay you very little if it's doing work experience there, but you'll learn a lot more.
And it goes on your resume.
You'll learn a lot more.
I think to add to reply to what you said, Aakanksha, I think most of us are, as you can see, most of us seem to be international students, and I think most of us would not have a problem in doing unpaid work, just to learn stuff and all that. But there seem to be legal matters that prevent us even from getting.
We can't have anyone on unpaid work.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah, it's actually illegal. And the reason for it is because if something happens and you are unpaid, then you're also not covered by insurance. So generally speaking, and we have minimum wage standards down in Australia, so if someone's going to take you on, they've generally got to pay you at least the minimum wage standard for your classification under the National Employment Scheme. So while there's a lot of good things to look after jobs that have gone into that, it's actually working against you at the moment. What normally happens though is that and this is worth checking with the university does have internship programs where you can actually work under their insurance cover. And if you can organise that, then you can do it.
Yeah, something for us to look into.
And also, what I did for my final year engineering project was tied with Bosch. So I actually worked for Bosch as my final year project. They paid me. Minimum wage, but they paid me. And even at Dorset got strong connections with the University of Melbourne. And so Dorset got a lot of students doing their internships or work experience at University of Melbourne.
And as I said, we've started up a cadetship again now. We used to have them years and years and years ago. And the first cadet we've had in my area is Melbourne University undergrad. Sorry, Monash University undergrad. And we're hoping to double the numbers next year. So there are opportunities that come up, so just keep your eyes open.
And that is irrespective of undergraduate and postgraduate, or only undergraduates?
Look, I'd have to check what the rules are. It's designed for undergrads, but there's no reason why I suspect people doing PhDs couldn't apply as well.
Your presentation reflects for undergraduate, graduate only. Right?
Well, any postgrads come through the undergrad recruitment process. So, if you've done a PhD, it's the same process to come into the business, and we judge people through the same process at the same time. Yeah.
Stephen, what's the area you're working in? The division?
The division I'm working in, I work in a group called Radio Network Development.
Okay.
So I always say we do...
Is it RF planning?
Yes and no. We do the higher level than RF planning. We do the rules around the RF planning. So we'll set how the RF planners do their job. So I've always said something like I create the recipes and then there's a group that bake the cake. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about marketing and selling ourselves. So as postgrad, I think the most obvious opportunity for us to practice marketing is to go to conference and present our research. But from the view of job hunting, we seem to need to sell our personality as well as our skills. So how can we take opportunity and how can we develop the marketing method to tell people how what I can offer you?
I think presenting at a conference is what you need to tell us. If you've had the push to go and do something like that, which is really beyond your degree, right? It's beyond your postgrad work, and you've done it to do something different. I think that in itself is something you should be saying. That's part of your marketing message.
In business, the normal promotional question is, how do I differentiate myself from all the other offerings? So, And normally it comes down to, can you establish what your unique selling proposition is? So if it's a product or a service, that's normally what you're looking for. But the same thing applies to the person. What do I bring to the table that I think is different, is unique, is because you all have it. And there's an old saying that says everybody, at least at one thing, is a genius. The question is that you don't be a Me Too. The problem with Me Toos is nobody wants them because they're not good value for money. Work out what it is that's uniquely you. Now, this is actually hard because you take it for granted. The thing is, you grew up with it. You know, what has brought us here, we take for granted. So you might need some help from some other people to say, you know, what is it about me? What do you think? These are conversations which aren't always easy to start, but maybe you could set up a group and practice on each other. It might actually be an interesting exercise to work on how you actually build each other's sales pitches, because you want to know what it is that you... In my case, one of the things that I bring to the table is that I'm an engineer. I had a 95 grade point average at university. I didn't do a PhD because I'm really practical minded and it just didn't feel like the right step for me. So I'm very bright, so I've got the intellectual horsepower. I work hard because you can't get there without being both bright and working hard, but I can actually have a normal conversation. So in my case, I can talk to non-technical clients. Most of our clients are actually non-technical people who need a very technical product. So I've been able to work out something that I can do that means that people who are very bright and very technical but try to have the technical conversation, well, can you give us the requirements? If you can give us the requirements, we can develop the product. This person doesn't know what they're talking about, so he can't give them the requirements. This is where IT projects fail all the time. They say, if you can elicit the requirements, we can build the system. What actually happens is they don't get it. So work it. Each of you has something unique. Each of you is on the planet for a reason. Each of you has something to offer. And it's hard. It's one of the harder things you do, is working that out. What's so special about me? Because there is something special. The temptation is to think, I'm not special. But each of you actually is.
Also, I'll just have another comment to make, which is, for example, you're doing the presentation for the conference. Try and prepare the best presentation possible. Research online, read online, watch the videos, watch TED Talks. Try and see how you can do it in the best possible way. It's not just about just putting some information from your PhD research out there and talking. And it's really, really challenging. And you may find that if you're presenting your PhD research, you'll spend 15, maybe even 1 or 2 weeks preparing that presentation. And what you'll realize is if you do it a few times, it starts becoming part of your personality. Now, for me, I still remember the first presentation I gave in first year at Swinburne. I had one slide, it had my dot points, I was facing the room, I was so nervous, I forgot, and pardon my language, but I said, shit, in front of the whole room. I'm ripping a sweat, right? And I stared for another minute, and then went, oh yeah! Seriously, there was this hand movement, and then I continued, and I was so embarrassed. I was terrified of presenting, and it's probably not something that I'm 100% comfortable with today as well, but it's okay, because if you try and as you do, you'll get better and better at it and become part of your personality.
Something else to consider is if the stats are that the average person who graduates from an engineering degree is in the top 4% of the population for intelligence. Okay? So that's a stat worth holding on to. I did say average. I saw some doubt being expressed. But that means that you're actually coming with a level of intellectual horsepower that's way above average to the table. So don't take that for granted.
And look, this is the thing about the grade point average. I don't think the grade point average shows you you're brilliant, because we already know that. If you make it through an engineering degree, everyone who makes it through an engineering degree is brilliant. The grade point average shows that you can apply yourself. It shows you that you can work. Because the difference between someone who achieves high and someone who achieves low in engineering is not that they're smarter, but that they do the work. And that's why I look for the grade point average, because it shows that someone has actually been able to do something outside of their lectures and just ingrain that knowledge into their mind.
What is my experience, that I also recruit few quite low-grade graduate engineers in my team. But as you say, the motivation and eagerness to learn is a very key driver for recruitment. So I consider both,
Yeah.
high grade or low grade.
My best friend at uni was a plodder, so he worked very hard. He got a good result because he worked very hard, and he had a good reason. One of the things that was on my slides I didn't get to is, if you've got a good enough why for what you want to do, you'll work out how to actually make it happen. So that's where the passion and the focus comes in. If your why is strong enough, you'll do amazing things.
We are a bit late. Can I have the last question? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
How do you all stay ahead in the industry? Because just like how the Nokia was used to be dominant in the phone market, but when Apple launched their product, they got toppled over just overnight. So how do you stay ahead in the market?
Not easy. You've got to keep looking for how to beat and thoroughly beat your rivals. For us in Telstra, it's always been about doing whatever's the cutting edge of technology, the bleeding edge. And we have been on the cliff many, many times, and we've failed once in very, very public light. But if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. And for us, it's about that, not about trying to stay one step ahead of your competition, but just stay so far in front that they just can't ever catch up. And like, we are very worried in Telstra at the moment, because you know that Optus and Vodafone have released their 4G networks. This is the first time where Optus and Vodafone have had the same technology that we have. It's the very first time for years and years and years since GSM days where they've been able to actually have the same thing to match us. So we've got to be looking now at how can we take the next step to stay miles in front of them. It's no good to be a little bit better because you'll win a few people here and there. If you want to stay number one in the market, you've got to be leapfrog. Well, not leapfrog, because hopefully they're not in front of you. You've got to stay that far in front that they can't catch up.
Yeah, Intel are a good example of this. Gordon Moore wrote a book on his philosophy called Only the Paranoid Survive. And the thesis of this book is opportunity is like white noise. It's really hard to pick the opportunity in all the stuff that's happening. So you've either got to do one of two things. You've got to focus very narrowly and hope that silo lasts your lifetime, or you've got to watch out for everything and be prepared to be agile and move as new things come and new things emerge. But there's more than one element to it. You've got to stay current technically. If you're not current technically, then you can get sideswiped by something you don't know about, but you should know about. There's a book by Clayton Christensen called The Innovator's Dilemma, and it's about the fact that disruptive innovation catches industries by surprise because their current customer base are driving them to do the very thing that the innovation is going to make irrelevant. And so if you haven't read that book and you want to be in this space, that should be on your reading list, because it does address this issue very, very well. And the third part is your customers are your best friends and your worst enemies at the same time, because they are driving you down the current road that you're on, but they'll also, if you have a good relationship with your customers, you can ask them the question, what do we need to be doing better, so that you wouldn't even consider going somewhere else? It's a scary question, because, I mean, it's a part of the human condition to coast. So you've actually got to overcome that.
Yes, you don't want to make your customers happy, you want to surprise them and delight them.
And as an engineer, you have to stay current. Like, even I'm finding, the stuff that I learned at university, which wasn't that long ago, it's fast becoming obsolete. So I need to train myself, and I go to hackerspace once or twice a month. And I'll go to work and use the latest chips and things to just try and stay up to date. And it's look online for community hackerspace, or you can email me. And so the learning doesn't stop at university, and especially for engineers, you have to keep learning. You have to keep thinking, and the day you think that you're not growing, that you're not learning, you've got to change something.
And frankly, that's the fun part too.
It's the fun part.
Yeah, the learning is fun.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's the way you don't grow old.
Yeah.
It's because what happens is people stop learning and then they stop living and growing and developing as people. When I was doing uni, none of my lecturers had been taught in the days, had all been done their training in the days before transistors had been invented. Okay? So when I did my degree, we didn't have a single topic that had microprocessors or microcontrollers in it, because they weren't mainstream then. And yet today we're working with leading edge, I mean the ARM chipsets you can get these days do amazing things. So yes, you do have to stay current. I had a lifetime of trying. And fun.
Okay, thanks to the audience and thanks Ray, Stephen, and so from the IEEE Monash student match, we have a token of appreciation. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
See, this is marketing.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you all again, and we join our hands.
If any of you have any further questions, please feel free to email me. Feel free to got my email. Yeah.
Can I request everyone to fill the feedback forms and put it in the bag?
I need to say something. Yep, no problem. Thanks. Yeah. Awesome.
I'm actually working in active RFID. That's more for high acid values.